Okay, we will call the city council workshop for Tuesday, August 10th to order. And the purpose of the workshop is a budget 2022 budget discussion. Opening comments for Jenny, we'll give you.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of the council. Tonight, we kick off our budget workshops with presentations from some of our department staff. As I mentioned to you when packets went out last week, what the hope and the goal is for tonight is to hear about the ideas, both new and existing needs and wants from department heads for their 2022 budgets. Incorporating the council goals strategic plan process that we've been working on. So what I've asked the department heads to do is focus on the high level kind of bigger ticket item areas, because we're always going to have the fluctuations for smaller line items. That just is natural part of the budgeting process, but they're going to give you a picture of really those bigger items. Kind of what their vision is for next year, but potentially even beyond that. But obviously we want to focus mostly on next year. I hope the council please take the opportunity to ask clarifying questions. So you understand, the why behind maybe what they're talking about. But what I want to see the council do is really just take in this information, this meeting and next week's meeting, so that we have a full picture from all departments about what their needs are. From that point on, we'll start to work through the priority list and how we vet those questions. But tonight, I just wanted you to have an opportunity to hear from department heads, because I think that's important, and just have a dialogue with them. I've asked them to keep it roughly half hour each. It's going to be plus or minus depending on just how much is going on in their department, but just as a general guideline, so we kind of have an expectation for that. I did include in your packet a couple of other suggestions for additional workshops to get us through the preliminary levy process. We can maybe talk about that, circle back to this at the end of the meeting, because I'm just looking for general, yes, this is a good direction, or if you have any suggestions as we develop that priority list and get to the preliminary levy decision. So with that, I will ask if the council has any just process questions for me.
Don?
Okay.
No.
Great. Then we are going to start off with Terry at the pickle. You can sit down, you can stand up, whatever you want, and we'll pull up whatever you want to start with, Terry. Just let us know.
Well, I just want to start out with, it's nice to see everyone in person, not in Zoom. Hope we're able to continue this way. So I'm going to start with the good news, income. July sales last month were the largest by month that we've had since we started keeping or doing financial reports for the city council in 2018. We increased by over $50,000 in 3 years. In part with that was 2 price increases. One when Mr. Kramer was my liaison, and then we raised another time just before we were open full time in the bar after COVID. So substantially that really helped. Some major factors in those increases were clothing lines, and in the bar, food sales were out of this world. And then in the off sale, it was my increase in bourbon sales. I have the opportunity to carry some allocated bourbons such as Buffalo Trace, Blanton's, Eagle Rare, and Stag, which a lot of big box stores and just municipalities with just off sale aren't able to carry, because I have, for less words, a restaurant in the bar. So with a combination store, you get to carry different items like that. So even during COVID of last year, my off sale sales were through the roof compared to normal years. But with that also comes bad news with the expenses. Due to the pandemic, prices have increased with cost of goods, and we're faced with limited quantities and availability of product. Budweiser, for instance, has stopped carrying some of their lesser selling items so they can focus on the three main, like Bud Light, Mick Golden Light, and then Ultra. So they got rid of their lesser popular products. Also with that, as far as the liquor industry, with the border being closed in Canada, Crown Royal was a limited commodity as far as some other alcoholic beverages. So that always puts a crimp on things. So then also with expenses, we're looking at workers' compensation costs went up 10% from last year. Merchandise for resale, we're expecting a minimum of a 7% increase. And credit card processing fees, you can see on the report that they went up 125%. A lot of that has to deal with beer. So most people are going to be using credit cards instead of cash in the bar. Cash is not king anymore. Everybody will come in, even if it's for one drink, they'll just run a card, which is frustrating because you ask them, well, would you like to start a tab? No, I'm only gonna have one. Well, 3, 4, 5 drinks later, it's the same card, same person. The capital improvement plan for 2022 is at $19,500. $3,500 is going to be set aside for a new ice machine. The ice machine that I have right now is approximately 8 to 10 years old. $2,000 for lights in the bar. We're going to set aside $10,000 for future backroom expansion. What I'd like to do is probably expand the whole off sale out to the sidewalk. I would like to put in 6 more door cooler, expand the beer cooler, and then have more room in the back for increased product. I cannot do the big buys from our beer companies. Most of them are 100 case buys. If you don't do the 100 case buy, you can't keep the price down for the customer. Like Brian down in Spirits, he'll do 300 case buys because he has the room down there. And then looking at that expansion looking at probably doing that expansion in 2024 because we'll have enough money set aside, unless of course building expenses are as high as they are right now. And then we have, then I set aside $4,000 for future beer coolers inside the bar. All 3 were, or 2 out of the 3 were bought at the same time. And if you know the probability ratio or rate, if one goes, they're all gonna go. So most of those are between $2,000 and $2,500, so it's nice to have a little cushion there. The long-range infrastructure plan, we covered most of that. That's the addition to the back room. And then the beer cooler. The employee retention and safety, my plans are continue to keep employees happy and safe, using my training through Giant from Jennifer. That's been helping. And then keep the needs and retaining employees long term. We're finding out that once people get comfortable and they're happy there, they want to stay there. So like I've been there 31 years, Lonnie's been there 36, Tim's been there 22. It's nice to have long-term employees. Sure, we still have our summer employees that go back to college every year, but we like keeping things the same. If there's any questions that you guys have, I'll gladly answer them right now.
Terry, you're talking about the credit card transaction fees. The company you work with, do they work off of a percentage fee or a straight fee?
Clearance is a percentage.
It isn't. Okay, well, do you know the breakdown of that, the first?
I'm not sure what the
Okay.
percentage is on that. I can have that for the next meeting though.
Is there any way to negotiate a straight fee for every transaction?
I'm not sure. What a lot of people are doing now is that I've heard that some restaurants, let's say your tab's $100, somebody tips you 10. Well, the restaurant will automatically take out that 3%. So that's passed on to the employee and not to the business. So
Yeah, that's one option I don't like. Well,
neither do I.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt the workers, but company I worked with, we used to have ATMs all over the place and credit card machines. We just worked off a straight fee for every transaction. If it was $50, it was a $2 transaction fee.
Well, the ATM is set up through Hazelwood, which also takes care of all of our gaming.
Through Matt, okay.
So the only credit card fees we have is when they run the transaction for their bar tabs or in the off sale.
Right. That, knowing those guys over there, there's a way to negotiate that too. If your volume through the machine, credit card transactions are fairly high.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of those companies, what they work off, similar to the one I did, is if the transactions are high, they'll negotiate a lower fee.
Okay. Because I think ours at the Pickle is between $2 and $3, I think, per
Okay.
transaction, so. But it's nice having them bring in the $10,000-$20,000 to fill it and not us.
Right.
That's one headache that I don't think I want,
No, you don't,
so,
nor the breaking.
right.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but one was, this year has been sort of crazy, you were saying, as far as the food and sales. Do you think that that's going to continue to next year just as much, or?
I think
how do
so.
you feel?
Grandview and Breezy Point are both booked with conventions all the way through the end of October. And once they're busy, we're always busy. A lot of it's going to depend on what the CDC does with this Delta variant and if there's going to be mask mandates and things like that. So
Okay. And as far as, what's the last month that you've had the profit and loss statement? Was it July? What was the profit standing at that point?
for the year,
Yeah, for 2021. Do you happen to know?
no, I already sent it in today. Yeah, I think it was 55,000 was the profit for last month. Yeah,
Ah,
for last month. Oh, year to date was 159.
oh, 159. Okay, so the original budget was just to be 37,000, right, for the profit? Or no?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with the long-term money going into the infrastructure and things like that for the.
Right. Oh, you mean, so that the 37,000 was for the long term?
Well, no,
No.
it's because when you think about an annual basis, right now is where he's making a ton of money. Get
Right.
later on in the year, there's less money, so the overall profit will likely decrease
it'll
because you
be-
still
okay.
have your expenses.
Yeah,
So it looks really good right now because it's just the time of year,
I see.
but towards year end, and now he should be well above this. This is a conservative budget from
Right.
last year, but it starts off slow, gets really busy, really profitable, and then it kind of, not too much dips, but it does a little bit. Is that fair to
Right,
say?
it'll dip.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Then I guess there's another question I was just curious about is, you mentioned try not to work overtime. That's one of the things that, one of the action steps. Do you have a lot of overtime there?
I do.
Is there, how would you be able to prevent? How
Hire
would you
more
be able?
people.
What's that? Hire more people?
Mhm.
Okay. And then as far as pay a decent wage, Do you think we're at that now or no?
I believe we are at the pickle compared to other bars and restaurants.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Okay,
there's, most people start out at over $13 an hour.
okay, so we're okay with that point, maybe.
Yep.
Okay,
And of course, you got tips included, so that helps.
okay. And then you also have less drama. What's the drama?
Trying to keep everybody happy.
Oh, the employees
Right.
and how? and
He
you-
said, she said, some days it's a mess.
Oh, the way they
Internal,
talking and the way they get after each other.
yep.
Is there a way to prevent that?
Separate them, don't let them work together. And we do that.
I mean, these are good points here. I'm just wondering how, if you're able to let us know and maybe in the future, you know.
Jennifer and I last year was a struggle. We worked on it a lot.
Okay,
So we bring them in. She's my HR referee, blah, blah.
Okay.
I mean, it was an ongoing battle for a while, so,
okay. Thank you.
yep. Mr. Mayor?
Ross?
No, I have a question at this time. In your operation, what one thing could you do to make a change, to make everything really work better than it is right now?
Well, I was talking to Brian from Spirits yesterday. And what we've been continuing to do is, he's like the guinea pig. If he finds a product that sells really well, let's say High Noon, for instance, which is a ready to drink cocktail. He was ordering, let's say, 500 cases a week. So I brought that product in and it sells like crazy. But he also brings in products that don't move. And then he'll give me a heads up, don't bother ordering that one. And also I have products that are not selling at my place and I'll bring them down to his place and blow them out. He has a higher traffic volume down there. And that's been working really well.
But overall, to make a substantive change in your operation, what could you do to make that happen?
Well, besides raising drink prices again,
Okay.
I mean, what do you suggest?
I'm not suggesting, I'm asking what you think would work
It
better.
would probably be raising drink prices one more time. We're still, I mean, we're lucky enough that we can buy large enough quantity buys through the off sale and pass that saving down to the customer in the bar.
Mhm. You ever thought of going co-op with some of the other liquor establishments in the area for buying? Or can't you do that?
Can't.
You can't.
No, even the transfers from Brian to my store and back and forth isn't really, they don't like it. But it's usually when, let's say Brian yesterday ran out of mags of Tito's. I had 2 extra cases, so I brought them down there. And then his delivery shows up tomorrow, so I'll get them back. So it's a wash at the end of the day.
Employees, lots of places are having problems keeping employees. They're leaving, going on. Apparently, you're not having that situation. What do you attribute that to?
A really nice manager who gets along with everybody. No, I think a very nice, a happy environment, you know. Everybody gets to work most of the shifts that they want between, you know, if a mother has a child and she needs daycare during the day, she'll work more day shifts than night shifts. Things like that, so.
I have nothing. He answered it.
Okay.
Just one follow-up question, if I may. You mentioned you need more people to prevent overtime. How many more are you thinking, or just one more?
One.
And I'm assuming it's because you're crushed. I mean, you're selling a lot, right?
Well, there's a couple factors.
Uh-huh.
Like my one bartender last week, his daughter committed suicide. Timmy had a motorcycle accident last week. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not overtime all the time. It's when these other factors show up and I'm the fill-in guy and
Okay,
So
yeah. Are you having trouble finding people?
we just sent in an application today, so I think I might have found the one.
Uh-huh,
So if it all goes through and background check went through, so.
okay,
And it's not every, it's not every week that we need that. It's just
yeah.
when people
And-
need vacation, like Lonnie's gonna be taking 12 days off, so that's gonna put a crunch on.
And it's not because of the salary or anything, right?
Mm-mm.
You think? Okay,
No, I think it's people want to stay home and not work.
Okay.
And that should be over soon. I hope.
thank
I don't
you.
know.
I didn't mention this at the beginning, but if you think of other questions or, if anything else comes up, please get them to me. I'll make sure to funnel them to the department heads. That way I just keep a running tally in case there's a question that the whole council might be interested in knowing. I want to make sure to have that fully kind of documented for everyone so that I can provide you with follow-up questions and you'll have that for your reference. And if needed, we'll bring you back in if we have more questions, but
Oh,
otherwise,
absolutely.
I know it's, part of the normal process. So thanks, Terry.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think we have the police department now, and we're gonna pull up a presentation. You can sit down, stand, whatever you want.
Two Terrys. That's pretty thick.
Really?
Good evening. I would like to kind of break this presentation down into 3 to 4 areas. Number 1 is going to be the proposal of the K-9 unit for the department. The second one will be the hiring of a secretary or office manager. The third would be, which I won't talk a lot about, but can explain, ask questions, is WatchGuard cloud storage, which is our video storage, and the updating of a couple rifles. So first, I would like to start with the K-9 program. Go to the next slide. Want me to run a clicker? You can run it. Might have to go 2 slides. Okay, so there's some photos of some items that officers have taken off of the streets as a result of their drug interdiction efforts. And there's kind of an overview of what has been confiscated. There's been cash, guns, drugs, all types of drugs. I think we have to acknowledge as a community that we do have a drug issue, no different than any other community. And maybe in some ways a little bit worse, as we do have a highway that runs through right to the dead center of town, which I think it would probably be safe to say a good portion of the drugs that end up in Bemidji or north have come through Nisswa or around Nisswa, but certainly in the area. And the officers, as of late, have proven to me through their efforts that the drug problem is probably a little more in depth than I had even thought that it was. I'm gonna go to the next slide. Somehow I feel in a different order. Okay, that's just more a representation of items that have been seized. This is not cherry picking over years and years and years of enforcement efforts. These are all within basically the last year. And that's probably not all of them. That's just what looks kind of nice on tape, but there's, there's other drugs, marijuana is not really much of a concern. I shouldn't say that, but marijuana is not really, we're not focusing on that anymore because there is so much of this other stuff out there. And of course, drugs and other crimes are closely connected. And I do think it's our responsibility to do our part in the drug enforcement of, the northern part of Crow Wing County, not even just Nisswa, because drugs don't recognize jurisdictions. Go next one. So what we're kind of looking at trying to do, with your approval, is we would like to purchase a dog that currently, I believe, is available. It's partially, I think, trained by another officer, but we'll require more training, which would require some expense, require officers' wages and whatnot. An officer has already been designated to be the canine handler if we do this. So since May of 2020 and June of 2021, we've utilized a canine from other agencies 13 times. That would be probably Baxter and Cass County for the most part. I don't think anybody else. Right. The Brainerd officer lives in Nisswa, so that's helpful. But there have been over 35 times when we would have utilized the dog had one been available. So that's a pretty substantial deficiency in our ability to detect drugs. Now, not really a drug guy. I'm not certainly a dog person, but dogs certainly can find drugs where people can't necessarily find them. I believe there was a case that there was drugs found in a engine compartment of a vehicle, found by a dog. A human would never have found that. Is that right? Is that accurate? Right. So there is a need and the ability to utilize a dog. This is a company that there's prices there that we could get a dog from as well. I'm not exactly as familiar with this, and I don't know what their availability of a dog is. So my preference would be that we'd start this program sooner rather than later, but mostly because we know where an available dog is. But if we do use some other avenue to get a dog, it might take more time. You might have to be on a waiting list potentially for a dog, or you have to wait for it to get old enough for some basic training. I'm not sure, but we would look into that, of course. But we're proposing purchasing the dog from the area officer in the area, and I don't think those prices are for that particular dog, are they?
Also, that dog, you think it will go over. This is from company that we could get a dog in the spring. One would be available, we'd have to import it. This is their prices in the event that we can't get that other one. So this would be a for sure backup plan if the other one was not available.
And the other dog that we think may be available, that was $12,000. Is that right?
So that one, with the training cost, it actually probably be a little bit more, or you say it would be a local trainer. So
I mean, just the dog price.
Just the dog price is a little bit more than this one.
Okay. There will be additional costs. I mean, we will have to do some outfitting of a vehicle so the dog can ride in it, temperature controlled thing, thermometers, what all, I don't know, but there's different things that you have to do to protect the dog. We're not sure exactly yet, but there may be some travel and expenses for the officer who is handling the dog for out of the area training, probably in the cities. But those costs would not be reoccurring, and I would propose again that all of the upfront costs, whether it's rigging of a car, training, purchase of the dog, would all be taken out of our investments And then we would budget for the maintenance costs, which would be vet bills, food, maybe some additional training here and there. The officer's time will need to be compensated for regular training to continue the proficiency of the dog, and those costs will be reasonable. So not really of much concern, I don't think. The upfront costs are, that's the big expense. We will explore grant opportunities as well. Not sure what's available, but we will look into that. These are just a couple of, the other thing about the dog is it is, we talk a lot around here about community policing. Well, a dog is a pretty good sort of an ambassador for the city. Kids love them. We could probably and would probably utilize it for safety town assistance with Amber in the park. We could bring it around the school for the kids to see. We'd be great at our many public events that we have in town. These are some press releases of dogs, what some work that dogs have done. Yeah, I can't read it because I didn't bring my glasses, but the case on the right there, that directly involves a Nisswa officer, so we could take some credit for that one. Maybe all the credit. Well, for this purposes, we'll take all the credit. But, we are established as a pretty good drug enforcement operation here, I think. Comparatively to many other cities and of the size at least. But we'd use the dog for different things. I think it'd be a good PR thing and, kind of fun in a way. This is more information that about the dogs and how they're used and whatnot. So if you have any more in-depth questions, I'd be happy to answer them later. Or Connor is pretty well versed in the dog. He's done all the research, put all the information together. He can certainly answer the questions in more detail than I can. In fact, if you would like him to do that now, he could come and do it now, if you have anything specific.
The only question I have, what type of dog are we looking at? Because we had a dog. You did a long time ago.
Yeah,
We had
a
bear.
lab, yeah.
Yeah. Are we looking at that?
This
Or are
would
we
be a
looking at a
Malinois.
multi-purpose or?
This would be a Malinois dog.
Okay,
It will not be a bite dog.
okay,
I mean, they kind
Okay.
of, they sort of look like a German Shepherd more or less, but.
Yeah.
it's not.
okay.
This dog that's available, is it another department's dog that they are getting rid of, or?
It's a local trainer that actually works for that. The police department, he's got his own canine organization that he trains multi-purpose dogs. He's raised dogs, he used to be Troy County's handler for dogs down there. So he's got decades of experience with canines.
But it's a brand new young.
But it's a brand new.
It's a brand new, yeah.
He just bought this and hasn't been used by the department. He's training it. That's what he does. He goes up and buys puppies, trains them, and sells them to.
Okay.
That's where we kind of, sort of, almost, not really, I want to say pushy, but it's kind of, there's some time elements that we have to consider if we're going to go that route. The dog is for sale. I mean, somebody else could buy it.
If we had a dog and another municipal police department asked for its use, would we charge for that or not?
No,
There's no charge
No.
for that.
no. That's part of being a good, good working relationship with the other departments did not charge us when they came and helped us. We would not charge them. We would have to have some policies in place as to what an appropriate area of call out would be, what the circumstances of a call out would be. It's all things that would need to be hashed out. My opinion of it is that depending on, we should make efforts to help other cities and whatnot, if reasonable. So for example, this dog will also be able to do tracking. If we had a lost child, I would say we go anywhere. We would need to go to help. If it's a breezy officer that has a car they think has drugs in it and the officer that's handling the dog isn't working, well, maybe they could come out and help. We'd have to discuss that. But I do believe there should be some obligation to assist when possible, but not force the officer to have to come out for every call either. There's gonna have to be some discretion on that person's part to make that determination with some guidelines set up ahead of time.
I'll show my ignorance. Do you have a drone?
We do not have a drone.
You're not talking about getting one.
What's that?
You're not talking about getting one either?
A drone? No.
Okay.
Fire department.
Has a drone.
Yeah.
The rules on drones are complicated.
Craig, so how,
Ross, can you turn on your microphone, please? Thanks.
how soon are you talking for this dog that's available? I mean, this sounds like it's gonna be in this year's budget.
Well, I would do it tonight if you approved it. I mean, I think the sooner rather than later. Like I said, the dog is for sale.
No, that's why I'm
and-
asking.
And this would be an ideal route to go as opposed to the other route because the trainer is actually in the area. It has a relationship with the officers here. So the assistance, the advice that person could give would be much easier to obtain, I think. So there's a lot of reasons, I think, to try to get this dog now rather than wait and see what we can get later on.
So I assume that the dog is being trained by this trainer. And then for Connor, you'd have to be trained with the dog too, right? And how long would that take for the training with Connor and the
Probably won't
dog?
take long for the dog. It might take a long time for Connor. No, how long?
Approximately
6 to 8
Yeah,
weeks.
6 to 8 weeks.
The training
So,
is ongoing though, keep in mind. I mean, it's not gonna be a training and they're done. It's gonna be ongoing for the life of the dog.
okay,
So,
so with a 6 to 8 weeks training, is that every day type thing? Or will you still be able to do your duties or do you have to be away for that time?
Well, so with the local handler, so if we're with like an agency or a organization like McDonald, the one that was advertised there, I would have to go down to the cities and be down there for 6 to 8 weeks, 5 days a week. And you have to pay room and board and all that stuff. Around here, obviously you say like room and board. Trainer back here. I don't know how it would work as far as how we would do coverage or that 6 to 8 weeks. That'd be something we have to work on.
that's something we will work through. That's not a concern.
Okay. Thank you.
So any other questions on the dog?
Can we can't make a decision on that tonight though, right?
No.
No.
Yeah, so-
Nope.
Okay.
I will say, though, if you are inclined to want to continue this discussion, I would give Chief Taylor feedback that you would like. I think we need more specifics, dollars, cost, from this individual, things like that. We need to have those specific things so that you know what you would be approving if you were inclined to do that.
I mean,
I'd like to see more specifics.
I would like to too,
I
yeah.
would say we should get it on next month's agenda.
Well, and then,
Well,
Well, that's in a week, right?
I get that.
I'd like to see more specifics, more down, because I know there's a cost there. I know it's not
timelines, that kind of stuff.
within this or that. And then also if you decide to give Officer Connor some vacation, we'd be reliant on other agencies to come up, correct, with K-9?
Well, it's like anything else. I mean, if you went on vacation, we'd have the same as we have now, nothing. We're not gonna be, there will be nobody else that would be qualified to handle the dog.
Right.
So.
Oh,
yes,
no, I
if
know
he's-
that.
If he's out of service, so is the dog.
Mhm.
Yeah. As far as specifics goes, I think I gave Connor.
Can you have him come up if he knows more specifics?
Are these numbers the most current? There's a slide, I think, that has the numbers on it.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on what.
That's
We-
different.
So that's McDonald's, so.
Can you, Connor, can you go to the microphone? Thanks.
So the other local trainer that we're gonna go with, he gave me a cost estimate up front for the dog, and the training would be $15,000. That would be the cost of the dog, narcotics and tracking. He would prefer not to do the narcotics because he feels like that would be better suited for one of these other ones. I've contacted the owner of this company here, and he would do the drug training itself, which would be a couple weeks. He could do that for around $4,000. So either way, we're around that $15,000 mark with that other dog.
So let's do this. Why don't, so we can continue on with the chief's presentation, and I know we're all interested in the canine. Let's make it a point to sit down with, just get the numbers, like we were saying, like you're doing right now. And just the dog separate from the rest of the budget, that this is what it is. You're looking at asking to take the money out of your investment account. So you got 33,000 roughly. Is that what's in the investment account or?
No, there's like 90,000.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, so basically this would be a budget neutral issue anyway.
right.
So let's, so if we can sit down and I'm trying to think. Liaison,
I am.
yeah. So if Mark can sit down with Connor and Craig, if you would do that, and then boom, so because you know how we're gonna want to look at it.
Right.
And then we can do that and we can move on to the next item on this one. Because we want to definitely keep it rolling.
So those numbers there are accurate for that company.
For that company, that's 100% accurate. Those
And
are
we do
those
have-
are quarter
And we
prices.
do have accurate numbers for the other dog, the
Yes.
local dog.
It'd be about $4,000 less than that.
Than the McDonough one. It'd actually be a little bit less than that as far as just because you're not paying where you're going to save is it's the dog price and the training prices are going to be about the same. What you're going to save on is the 6 to 8 weeks of hotel and per diem.
Right,
So roughly, yeah.
right,
Plus he's out of rotation for 6 and 8 weeks.
right.
If anybody if anybody else has questions, you can
Yep.
certainly ask Connor or the chief, but dogs save money.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yes.
They are good investment.
Okay,
Thanks.
so this is the big one.
Thanks, Connor.
You asked the previous Terry what he could do to make his operation run better.
Yep.
Here we go. This is where we go for us. Can you go to the next slide, please? So, without getting in the weeds, I think running the police department is sort of a complicated endeavor when it comes to information being handled, processed, how you have to deal with it, what is done with it. And this is not a complete list, but this is a list of things that I believe a office manager, I would call it, should be doing rather than a police officer.
Mhm.
It does not benefit the city one bit to have a police officer making whatever they make, sitting in their office, making CDs of videos or entering data that can be done by anyone else, or to attach information to a report that the report basically is done. One thing, John, you can testify this, that when a police officer makes an arrest, no matter what it's for, see, even just a DUI, which is probably just one of the more basic arrests, there's probably a good hour, maybe even longer on the scene where the arrest happens. There is a half an hour transport time. There's probably another hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2 in the jail, booking the person in. Then there's probably a couple of hours writing the report. And that's just the beginning of the case. Because, and there's a slide of this, but every piece of information that comes in or goes out regarding that report has to be documented and attached to the report. And that takes time. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but at the end of the day, you have to remember, officers are out 7 days a week, nearly 24 hours a day, generating work, generating paperwork. It's not just an 8-hour thing that's happening all day long. So the tasks that go along with each report is continuing to grow. And that will probably be increased if you were to agree to a dog. We would expect more drug arrests, and drug arrests are actually quite more complicated than just like a simple DUI arrest. With a drug arrest, you have to do evidence processing. Evidence has to be sent to the BCA. Then when they give their results, they'll send back the evidence that has to be booked into the evidence locker here. You have to attach the information that they provided as far as the status of the evidence that you've given them. So it goes kind of on and on and on. But these tasks here are ones that we've identified as critical, but not really beneficial or effective or efficient for a police officer to do. And some of these things take longer than others. Some of them don't happen all the time, but there's other things that happen that we haven't mentioned. So if you would want to go through those lists with me individually, I'd be more than happy to do that. For here, probably not. We're really not going to make a clear understanding for you of what it's like. But I do have, this is the next slide. Well, just trying to summarize here that, the officers need to be on the streets. That's what they're paid for. They're not paid to make discs of videos. They're not paid to attach stuff to reports or even process a case, really. That should be done by a civilian. Because what they should be doing is they should be out on the street and being visible. How many times have you heard, because I've heard a lot, where people compliment the Nisswa police for being visible on the highway. When they should be on doing active patrol. They need to be detecting criminal activity. They can't do that when they're off in the office. They should be involved in the community, whether it's foot patrol or our house, our door-to-door things. Those are jobs that they ought to be doing rather than sitting in the office. So we need them outside, out in the field, not sitting in the office. It doesn't make any sense really to have officers making, now they're going to make more than they had, and that's a lot of money for a person to make copies and stuff like that. Now, I'm not trying to demean that work. It's very important work. It's essential to the case, but it's nobody in law enforcement signed up to do that, and it's getting even worse and worse and more overwhelming than it used to be.
Are you suggesting this person be part-time to begin with, moving to full-time or what?
Well, I'm proposing full-time. I think there's enough, I have enough questions myself as to how long it will take to train a person to do these things. So some of them don't happen all the time, so the training will take longer. I don't know what I have on the list that we might add, and my instinct is that if we do come to a point where we have run out of work for them to do, there's plenty of other work in the city that can be done, to warrant a full-time position, because I really don't think, and we talked earlier that a lot of places are having trouble finding people to work. I don't think we're going to really find anybody interested in a part-time job that's an entry-level clerical position. I might be wrong.
All these items that you list here, there's a fair amount. If they were up to speed, do you think that, I'm sort of piggybacking off of what Don's asking. So do you think it is a full-time work that if they're up to speed? I realize there's training that has to be done.
I believe what's on that list, if you had someone who really knew how to do it, under our current workload, it probably is a 30-hour-a-week job.
Okay.
But when you have officers on the street more than they would, they're going to generate more work as well as in the paperwork. So I will be interested, and I don't have an answer because I won't know until we do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be interested to see how that changes our caseload. Right now, I didn't bring the numbers, I don't think, but right now, of all the northern departments, we have the most workload. We have the most cases. That's partly because of the highway, partly because we have so many people in town on the weekends in the summer, actually during the week, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we have good officers that actually go out and enforce laws and make arrests and do what it is the community expects them to do. Other communities don't have as dense a population maybe, or they don't have the state highway, so they don't generate as much workload as we have been. Our workload has gone up, I think, every year, pretty much almost since I've started here. So I think right now we're at, how many cases are we at now? Do you guys know? 2,000 cases for the year. You know, I don't know if that's right or not. I have to look. I maybe shouldn't have brought it up, but it's a lot. You know, we used to not do 2,000 cases in a year, let alone 2,000 by this point. Now, this is a typical report. And again, I can't see it because I forgot my glasses, but this is a report that, you know, it's very typical. This is not an unusual report or something that we picked out because it fit my argument. This is something that happens a lot. And as you can see, I wish I wore glasses. Can I stand up here? These are all the charges for this particular case. Now, it looks like a lot. That is a lot, but it's not all that unusual to have that many charges on one arrest, and it is a drug arrest. Those are a little more in depth in detail. Drug arrests generally do warrant more work because there's evidence in sense. The DCA is in evidence that can be processed in our facility here. And if you look here, this evidence here, this all has to be manually entered into the computer. And then someone has to take it, put it in the evidence room, and then it has to be taken from it. One person can only go to the evidence locker, and then take the evidence and file it appropriately once there. That same person then will generally get a notification if you say we want this, or the county attorney's office saying we want this tested. So then they have to take it right up and send it in. So this all has to be logged in, all manually. It's not really all that easy to do because it asks so many questions about each individual item that you are collecting. All these drugs have to be weighed. Make sure there's the same one going in with the evidence locker they're coming out. And weight also chart. Just another slide on this. So this is just a continuation of this media here. These are all things that have come and been processed into the report. You see the top photos. So officers, when they collect any kind of evidence, they photograph it. Photographs have to be loaded into the report so they can be viewed. This particular case, the search warrant was written, so after the officer wrote the search warrant, that was put into the report so it can be verified and viewed. There was a vehicle forfeiture form that was added, as well as cash forfeiture forms. The BCA submission form, which is the form they require when we send them evidence. There's a DVS notice. I don't even know what's a KBE value. Kelly Blue, yeah. So when they can forfeit a vehicle, you have to know worth it. So this is a pretty in-depth one, but it's not all that. It's not all that atypical, really. And there's several of them that are just like that. And all of that takes a lot of time. I just laid out that it's, you know, it's an hour and a half on scene. A drug arrest probably maybe more than an hour and a half on scene. And the booking and report writing, then that's just the beginning of the case. And information can filter in for weeks, if not months. And it has to be dealt with. Okay, thank you. That was the last slide.
Thank you. Was there, you mentioned a third thing though, the video.
Okay, the WatchGuard video, that kind of ties in with the secretary. One of the things that really grinds officers' gears, I guess, is sitting around making discs for the attorneys. So generally, they need to make 2 copies of everything. We have body cameras, we have squad car cameras. Some of them get very long and they don't go on one disc. So it's really kind of a pain, and it's really kind of 1990s maybe or something. So what I'm proposing, and the cost can be figured different ways depending on your data storage amount you need. There's different ways to do it. We can talk about that. But I'd like to just have the the videos uploaded to the cloud. That way, when the county attorney or city attorney calls us, says we need these videos, we can just send them an email link. They can open it. They can look at it, do what they want with it. They'll have access to it for a certain number of days, depending how it's set up. And then they can give it to the defense rather than us making copies for them. So they can share it, and then there's no more discs. So taking that out of the equation would free up some time for office manager. But either way, the officers are just almost getting overwhelmed by videos. They're generating several videos a night. Not all of them need to have copies made, because they're not all, they don't all result in any kind of a court action or arrest. But, each officer is generating two videos on all of their calls, so body camera and the squad car camera. And we have to make copies of both.
And what was the price we were looking at for something like that?
Meg, you remember what I said? I think I 8,000, yeah.
Oh, 8,000 type. Okay.
I think we're probably the only department now not doing it that way.
What kind of backup is there for that? So you have it on your server.
We have it on our server, it goes to the
Okay.
cloud, and then it might as well be magic from there.
Well, if it disappears from the cloud, you still have it, so.
But just from the cloud, I wouldn't know what, we still
mean, you
have,
still
we still have
have
it on our server. But
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I believe we do. I know about as much as computers as you do, John.
I had a VHS recorder.
Awesome.
Yes, it usually stays on the server.
Okay. Is there any other questions I can answer?
Mayor,
Don?
I have two. Looking at your notes that you provided for the meeting tonight, you say this: Nisswa has had issues with losing officers to the sheriff's office. There's no reason why the city cannot work toward more staff stability. We have 2 officers who have expressed interest in leaving for other departments. How would you address this?
You guys kind of did partially. If you finalize and approve the union contract with the police officers, that's one part of it that will help a lot. Right now in the state of Minnesota, there's 400 open law enforcement jobs. When I was looking for a job, there was 400 applicants for one job. And nobody wants to be a cop anymore. I don't know why, but the field is not doing, the profession is not really doing all that well right now for a lot of reasons. But to help with the officer retention plan, one of the things that we do have a disadvantage of, every small town does, what are the opportunities for an officer who is young and aggressive and ambitious? Where are they gonna go? I mean, what's going to happen for them? What can they do? So when an officer expresses an interest in something, I believe it should be taken seriously. And if they can provide evidence or proof that it would be beneficial to the city and the taxpayers, I think it should be done. And that's what we have kind of with the canine program. So there's an officer, Connor, has expressed an interest in doing that. I think it's not for no other reason. We have an obligation to consider just for a program to keep someone around, keep a good officer around. I wouldn't propose it just for that reason. I do believe there's a legitimate, provable benefit to the community. It's a plus that we actually have somebody who wants to do it. So that's part of it. And the other part of it is, you have a super cool chief, people want to stay. That's why we lost so many people in the past.
Or leave?
So we got to do something drastic to keep them.
Just one other question. Looking at the spreadsheet with everything that you're thinking of doing next year, comes out to a 30% increase over the year before. You think that's unreasonable considering the times we're in?
No,
Why not?
because it's probably things that should have been worked towards for the last several years and worked. So what times are we in? The economy's never been better. We've been hearing that. We were told to go bold. We went bold, knowing that things are gonna have to be paid for. You're
think-
including numbers that were, the dog out of investment, so that is included in the budget, but it wouldn't be at the end of the day.
And just remember, you never need a policeman till you need a policeman.
Isn't that a fact?
Craig, item with the rifles. You got, we got 4 now?
Well, everybody has their own rifle. We have, I think, 3 or 4 outdated, I would call them outdated UMPs. You remember those things?
Mhm.
Back several years ago, they were the thing to have. They were kind of compact and they're sort of, it's basically a rifle or a pistol with a stock on it. I think things have changed kind of in tactics for law
What?
enforcement. So we want long range rifles, not,
So what are you looking at? Like
we're just regular 223s, like,
M4 style, short, collapsible stock?
oh boy. I'm not a gun guy either, John. What are we looking at?
That's what we have right now here. So just 5 or 6.
5.56, and then you're looking, are they an M4 stock? So they're collapsible, short barrel or long, full size?
No, they're just full size. 16-inch barrel.
Okay.
It's a collapsible stock
Okay, collapsible stock.
or retractable.
Yeah. Yep, okay.
Well, you remember when you started, they probably carried shotguns. Everybody had shotguns.
Take a shotgun any day.
Then it kind of went to the smaller rifles and now it's to here. I mean, things evolve like any other profession. The tactics evolve, expectations change.
So we have some rifles now that are newer. and
Yeah,
are-
we have a few that are newer. We just need,
And 4 gets everybody
yeah.
with the newer rifle.
then
And everybody
we're
would
all
be-
consistent with ammunition and everything,
Good.
so.
And the ones you'd be getting rid of the other ones, I would assume, trade them in.
Well, maybe not, because the ones we have are fully automatic and nobody wants those, so not worth anything. I'm not exactly sure they're worth trading in.
What would you do with them? Just keep them?
What
Yeah, maybe
caliber are they?
backups, have a backup gun or something in case one goes down.
Okay.
There's really not much you can do with them, being that they are fully automatic. The new ones would not be fully automatic.
Call skip.
It'd be semi-automatic.
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
Yes. Thank you, Craig. I'm waiting for John.
Thank
like,
you,
yeah,
Craig.
give
Can
me-
we take a
Sure.
5-minute
Sure,
break?
yeah, that's
Cool.
fine.
Oh. No. That's what I gotta do.
Honor. Craig just got done doing. So I'm just gonna stick to the numbers, I guess, and try to answer any questions you might have. I think what I'd like to do is start with the smaller budgets first. There's less things to be controversial or anything in that, so. You have this budget summary. This wasn't edited. Some of these are notes that I had for Jenny and Maggie when we met, so. For instance, underneath the public works line item, there was a comment in there about overtime. We fixed that, so. But starting at the bottom with the cemetery, that budget actually went down a little bit. And the reason why is I was able to lower the supplies based on what we spent this last year by $1,000. So that's one of the few that I was able to get to go down. Sanitation, that's gonna be pretty straightforward. We've talked to the hauler, Eric Logie, with Waste Partners, and it sounds like his, what will be charged for the recycling is mostly, which is the biggest number for our sanitation, is gonna stay about the same for one more year. And it sounds like at this time, the county is still going to contribute. Didn't we talk about that? I thought it sounds like the county's probably still gonna do half, but I don't have that confirmed. So right now, you'll see that there's a number for $70,000. It's budgeted in there. If the county doesn't pick up their half, then obviously that's an increase for us of $35,000 over last year. The only other thing to note in the sanitation is the first line, we're adding new garbage cans downtown, 10 of them. So that's about $3,000. Going into the next one, street lighting. Mostly unchanged. The main difference there is we've added the street lighting in Wolf Chase. And so we had to add utility costs to operate those. It'll be interesting to see what happens here going forward for this next year. Those are LED, but Minnesota Power also has been out replacing lights around town with LEDs. So I don't know if that's going to impact our cost or not. I didn't even know they were coming out to switch them over. They just did it. So I don't know if they're going to pass on any savings to us or not with those. So we'll see. The public restrooms. This, I believe, was another line item that I was able to, our budget that I was able to get to go down. That one actually went down almost 23%. I took the insurance out of there and then was able to lower the supplies by $1,000 again. And I believe the utility services were also down a little bit too. Mostly that's because mild winter, not a lot of heat costs. So that, and I think the chamber staff this year is a little better about keeping the doors shut in the summertime. So the air conditioning, so we're not air conditioning the outside. I've noticed that. So that, I believe that's probably helping a little bit too. So I think from here, I'm going to walk into Public Works because as a percentage, it's the next lowest rising. It's going to be up about 12%. So a big chunk of that is this is where all the salaries come out of, is this particular budget. We don't put salaries into the sanitation or street lighting or any of that. So you'll see a big chunk for wages as an increase. Outside of that, it's mostly equipment, and then So the first thing you'll notice there outside of wages is we've got some Bobcat attachments that Mike would like to purchase. Actually, it's a trade. If any of you are familiar with the cost of a Bobcat attachment, Mike's looking for $6,000, a little more than that, to do the trade. And he's got, I think it's 3 or 4 different attachments he would like to trade. The main reason he'd like to do that is he's trying to resize them to fit the toolcat, excuse me, the toolcat a little better. They were previously sized more for the Bobcat, which has a lot more capacity to carry it, but the toolcat is more mobile, it's faster. And so they're using it on the sidewalks more. They want to be able to use the broom attachment, for instance, on sidewalks where we've been using the garden tractor. Especially in the dead of winter, we do a lot of brooming of sidewalks as opposed to snow plowing. You know, it's light, it's fluffy at that time. But we have a guy that's outside in what looks like an Eskimo suit. If he's driving the John Deere garden tractor, where if he's in the toolcat, it's heated and a little more comfortable for them to operate. So he's looking for that. Now I did do some checking on money that we have left over in our budget for 21. And I think we can probably pull that purchase off now as opposed to putting it into the 22 budget. So, but I did want to mention that here. If it is something we cannot purchase in 21, it'll be in the 22 budget.
So those are Bobcat attachments that they don't use or need anymore.
They're changing the use of them.
Okay.
They're the same attachments. There's a snow blower, a broom, and then a gyromore brush. And the ones that they currently have are too big for the toolcat.
Yeah.
So they're looking to, and then there's one that was, I believe was getting, the snow blower was getting a little wore out. And so they wanted to upgrade that.
Okay.
And then after that, we'd be looking at vehicles. We used to run with 1 gator, now we run with 2 with our seasonal staff, and some of the other things we found that the gators are very useful. And so our oldest one is a 2009, and we've been doing some, not a lot of repairs, but they're becoming more frequent. And it feels like it's just time to show that one the door. We are still getting a pretty good trade value for that machine. I think it would just be wise to trade that up. That will be included in the number that comes off the matrix that I've built. It should be in your packet. Just trying to find that in my goals packet here so I can make sure I'm not missing anything with that. Yeah, so that gator's more than 10 years old. Most of this equipment has an optimal trade point where maintenance starts to, the annual cost starts to rise due to maintenance. And so we're at that point with this machine. So that's the main reason we want to upgrade that. It basically will be the same thing. It'll do the same thing. It's just a new version of it. The other 2 vehicles that you'll see in here, one is a mower tractor that we were going to purchase this year. Mark, you might be familiar. We've talked about that a couple months ago in the Public Works Committee. We had to make some changes to that, and it got to be more expensive than what we had budgeted for last year. So we redid that. We refigured the matrix, and it'll be actually a purchase that would be paid for in 2022. But like a lot of things now, the lead time on these things are huge. It could be up to a year. So once we know the budget is approved, we're going to come back to it in Public Works again, review the changes we made to the equipment, and then try to get that ordered before the end of the year mostly to try to avoid some of the price fluctuation. For instance, the ditch mower that we wanted to put on this tractor, when we priced it a year ago, it was $24,000. By the time we went to purchase it, it was $31,000. Just in that amount of time, there was nothing different about it. It just cost of steel went up, labor went up, COVID. And so they jacked their price up significantly. So that too is all, it's a piece of equipment that we're changing how it works for us too. It's a larger tractor, more stable. It's kind of in between the big tractor that we used to have, and I don't know if you've seen the little one that we have, the little utility one that once in a while I've had up front here. So we'll have both of those other two tractors will be out of the fleet, and there'll be just this one going forward. So
Basically replacing the big one, the little one with the one in the middle.
exactly. The payloader took a lot of the big tractor's purpose away. And our little one had some reliability issues because of the weight of the mower that hangs off the side. A little bit of stability concerns with it, safety. When we have a variety of operators sometimes running it, so that's one other piece of equipment that we have. There's a fact sheet, if you will, a council goals sheet in your packet that has more of the details. I don't want to bore you too much more with that. If you have specific questions about it, you can probably come and talk to me about it sometime. The remaining piece of equipment is the F-450 with the Tommy gate on it that Mike Deck drives. This is just a machine that it's hit its 10 years. We've been replacing these 450s every 10 years just because they get rusted. They're what we plow parking lots with, intersections. They're backup plows. These trucks do a little bit of everything for us. And this one, the Tommy gate's getting where it's rusted out. The truck itself is mechanically fine, but a lot of the body is showing its age. So we're at a place where has still a good value to it, and we just upgrade it. So we're really not changing it, what it does. We're gonna pretty much equip it roughly the same. It'll have the Tommy gate on it, a dump body, another F-450, and we'll be looking to trade that. So one thing to note with trucks is we'll be buying it off the state bid or from mills as close to the state bid as we can get it, which we've done with a lot of our other vehicles, as you're probably familiar with. And so Mike tried to contact the dealer who has the state bid. They wouldn't give him a price. So he got a price. The prices that you see on here are from mills, and mills can see the state contract price, but they can't technically sell us anything off the state contract. So they usually try to match it or come very close to it. But these are numbers again too that will fluctuate by the time we place this order. I will probably have to update what it's actually going to be. They shot us a low price for the trade, and then also the price of the truck they couldn't guarantee. They won't guarantee it past the day they give you the quote, just because of the volatility in the truck market. Moving forward from vehicles, inside the public works budget. If you recall, 2 years ago, we had a line item for $50,000 in line 640, where we were trying to build up a fund to match county and state projects. If you recall, when the two different projects for 371 came in, that hit our budget hard. Those were six-figure expenses, and nowhere in our budget did we put away for that. We had to take from reserves to pay those amounts. So last year, that was taken out to help us fight the uncertainty we had with COVID, if you recall. And so I just placed that amount back in. I didn't increase it from what we were doing. It's just putting that back in. So I guess you can tell me if you want to do that or not. And then line 800. I look back in notes that we had from 2018, and we were increasing this by $17,300 a year. What we're trying to do is get to a point where the annual payment we would have on another bond, we have that available to make another bond payment. The idea was we had a 40-year cycle. If you recall, some of you that have been on the council a little longer, we had a 40-year cycle for resurfacing every street in Nisswa. And so the way that would work is we needed 3 bonds that kind of leapfrog one another. So as one's getting paid, we're bringing on a new one, but we needed 3 to kind of make it work. So as it stands, we're obviously paying on one right now, the first one. We had an older bond that will be maturing, but it won't mature till I believe it's 2032. Yeah, and so we needed to fill the gap, and so that's where this 17.3 is coming in. Each year, we're building up line 800 by 17.3 to get up to an amount that would be able to make the bond payment on that 40-year cycle. I know this gets a little confusing probably, but so that annual payment we would need to get to is $138,500. Now that was in 2018 dollars, so I haven't reanalyzed that for inflation. So it may be a little higher by the time we actually get to that point, but at least we'll have built up the majority of the way to there by the time we get there. The other wild cards on that will be how many roads you try to do at one time. You know, we do have some new roads. Obviously the expenses have gone up quite a bit. Right now we have a lot of priority roads for this next bond, so whittling that down to a bond similar in size to what we just did, or even just to make it a true third, could be kind of difficult. The one project you're probably all familiar with that may be included in that is the roundabout and Nokomis, Forest, Woodward, and East and West Linden may be in on that next road bond. And then there's other streets that we could talk about: Upper Roy, Church Street, City Hall Street's getting close. There's going to be quite a few, and it's going to be hard to eliminate them. So I think anything we can do to build up that fund ahead of time to allow us to do as many of those as possible, the better off we'll be. So I think before I go on any further, being that budget is kind of big and has a lot of the main expenses that we have, are there any questions on that? Go ahead. Tom.
Just a general one. How many dirt? How many city dirt or gravel streets do we have?
How many what?
Gravel streets.
Oh, gravel roads. So what we have is 1.8 miles.
And
of
everything else is blacktop.
Correct. And actually, I should reduce that amount by about I think it's 1 or 2 tenths. Because we're doing Sharman Avenue out at the sewer plant right now.
So you're not advocating any more dirt or gravel streets? Okay.
You know, the thing with gravel roads is you get zero satisfaction. The citizens that live on them hate them. Even some who won't admit it. They generate complaints no matter how much maintenance we do on them, and they're expensive to maintain. For the gravel and the chloride, so you have a dust issue with them always. They're not easy to plow. Our plows are set up more for paved surfaces. So we're trying to eliminate gravel roads.
And Mr. Mayor, I don't know if this is the right spot to bring this up, but shut me down if I'm wrong.
Okay.
We had talked at one time or several times before about assessments for roads, and it didn't seem to go anyplace. Is there any thought at all about some sort of assessment when roads are done for participation? I know a lot of the cities around us do it. We don't. And am I opening a can of worms or not?
I don't know that it's a can of worms, but I don't know that at this point, it's really, do we go down that rabbit hole or do we go down that I think that, you know, as we look at the budget as a whole and we start looking at, say, especially if you start looking at saying, oh my gosh, we got to cut. Well, how are we going to make it up? And assessments is a viable tool to look at.
Is that
Yeah.
something that can come up from Public Works?
There's a lot of places to bring it up, but yeah, it's, you know,
It would come up, I think, as in a year or two, the next road bond conversation will start to happen. And I think initial questions like that need to be vetted right away. So we know the direction, so Tom can plan, so all of those things. I think that would be the right time. So from a budget impact for next year, probably not significant, but always a question probably to be asked prior to doing something significant like that, because if that's what the council wants to do, then that's the direction we go. And then, yes, it would be vetted through Public Works to start, and I mean,
but we have
you know,
asked
it could be a
staff,
process.
we have asked staff to look 20, 30 years, 10, 15 down the road, long-term planning. So whether a person likes or dislikes assessments, say, it doesn't matter. It's something that should be brought up and open for discussion.
The numbers I am presenting here, Don, do not take an assessment into account.
I know that.
I just wanted to be clear because it goes out to the paper and others too. So. Any other questions?
I only had one, Tom. Ah, there it is. School training. We've asked this of the other departments too, well, mainly the police department, because training is always a big issue. But is there, you know, you got 2 supervisory staff out there under you now. And then you have the other 2 workers there. Is there training and stuff that they need to have? And I'm thinking, you know, is there safety training? Is there stuff like chainsaw safety, you know, whatever? Is there stuff like that we're missing out on, or is that something that you can see coming up? Because sometimes those can cost if they're unexpected.
So our safety training is done through MMUA. And so it's not built into the school costs that you see.
Okay.
It's more required training. So
Okay.
I'd have to look at, see exactly where we pull that out of the budget, but it, so chainsaw safety, fire extinguishers.
Yeah, all
Most of that stuff is all handled under there. So the school is mostly for things like, we did this smart salting class. Mike
Okay.
Deck has gone through it. I've gone through it. Bill Schultz, when he was here, went through it. We'll probably be sending Craig to it. I can't remember if Bub is gone, but he would probably need to go. That is usually training that they go to. Usually those are 1-day classes.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of
So
hotel expenses to that.
foreseeable training's in here. It's just
Yeah.
with maybe subscriptions or whatever.
You know, I asked them, you know, if there's any training they'd like to bring it forward.
Okay.
So
All right. That's good. That answered my question.
Just one more.
Mhm.
I couldn't tell by looking at the spreadsheets, if we're looking at the possibility of city water system for next year, is there anything that we should be looking at in the upcoming budget, even though we don't know if we're gonna do it or not?
So the way we're treating it as staff, and Jenny, you can add on to this if you like, is it would be a whole new department, and it would function a lot like our sewer department. It'll be a moneymaker, you know, it'll be self-sustaining by its fees, so you wouldn't see anything in this, the general levy budget,
Okay,
at least at this time. As far as I know, I can't foresee anything that should fall into here.
I was thinking more of in planning and stuff like that.
Sure. No, and that's with the feasibility study that the council authorized. There may be some other things and from that perspective, as we set up a new chart of accounts, just a short one for now so we can track our expenses for this topic specifically. We'll make sure to think about if there would be something that would be outside of public works, but if we want to have any general fund monies for that purpose, we'll make sure to look at that.
Anything else?
I have a question about, I noticed that in the Public Works proposed budget spreadsheet, when we look at the employer paid insurance, in 2020 actual is 38,500, then it goes down in 21 budget, and then it goes up in the proposed budget by 50% compared to the 2021. Why is that so different? I mean, why is it up and down and come back up like that?
I can probably give you a short answer on that. A couple of years ago, I was on the city insurance. I'm not taking the city insurance, and that just happened a year ago.
Oh, okay, so that explains the 2021.
And so, for instance, I believe one of our former employees also wasn't on the city insurance, but I think our new one is. So depending on if they take it or not, it can go up or down each year.
Okay.
And
So that
So-
50% increase is just another employee?
Correct. Yep. It just at a point in time, we decide this is our staff, this is what we pay for, and that's what we put in the budget. We don't usually go back and change mid-year. So
Okay,
if an employee changes elections mid-year, it is what it is.
okay.
But yes,
And then the other one is on wages and salaries. I noticed that 19.71% increase. And is that includes maybe the proposed increase in wages that we're looking at?
yes,
Okay, it's not an additional employee or anything, it's just the
not in this budget,
proposed.
no.
Okay. And then I noticed also the Public Works other pay. What is that?
So what that is it's our seasonal employee. I don't know if you've seen the young man that we've got running the lawnmower, pays for him, and it pays for our Public Works Committee.
Okay,
Just a note on that, so for our seasonal, we're currently paying $15.50 an hour for him. I'm allowing for up to 18 for next year, not knowing where the labor market's gonna be. I
Mhm.
know
okay.
seasonal people are drawing a big income these days. And we want a cut above just for the liability we have with the equipment that we have them running. So.
And then you have the general government buildings.
Yeah, we'll get into
Let's
that
get into that
next.
one? Okay.
Yep, I just wanted to cover the questions you may have had with the Public Works, the road maintenance budget first, because there's a lot to it.
Sure.
Tom, don't we have a slush fund for repurchasing the plow truck? Oh, what?
Sure.
Slush fund. It's probably not-
incorrect.
Yeah.
It's the vehicle matrix the vehicle matrix that I'm referring to, so
Yeah.
when you look at line,
Mhm.
bear with me, I can't see good enough to find it. Thank you.
account 550 vehicles.
Capital outlay vehicle.
Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Okay, so if you'll notice there, we have a budgeted amount of $58,074. And so that's not based on any one vehicle. What it is we put all of the vehicles into one matrix. and we take what is an annual amount to keep those current. And so we're building up a fund. And so in a year, say, like when we replace the riding lawnmowers, we're building the fund. In a year where we purchase a new big plow truck like we did last year, we take it out. So every year we're putting about this
So that fund, like when
58,000
we,
away.
the truck will replace this year, the F-450 comes out of that fund.
It does.
What's the balance of that fund then?
I'm not sure.
That's fine. That's fine. That answers my question though. So we're fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So moving on, we'll move into the general buildings budget. And so the biggest change you'll notice here is that I added wages for a potential new position. When we promoted my two guys, it kind of leaves a vacuum of manpower, hands to do the physical work. Because I'm asking them to do reports, I'm asking them to do budgeting. They're doing a lot of things that I used to do. And there's just plain is more work to do. We have a lot more demands on us with all the extra homes that are being built, new roads. There's a need for help. And so what I've tried to do is every time we've added new people, whether it's old people that leave or we add a position, I try to add skills that either we're lacking in or we could do better in. And so in this case, my guys that I have in my maintenance department currently are really good at equipment operating, street maintenance, pothole filling, plowing, that kind of thing. But cleaning the building, they do it, they do a good job. It's not their strong suit. And then the other thing you'll note is the landscaping, the gardening stuff that is done around the area. That was mostly done by me, and I just find that I don't have the time I need to do that properly. So what we're looking to do is add a position that would incorporate those two items as the strong suit. They would still help out with plowing and other maintenance duties. That would all be part of the job description, but they would be focused on dealing with the electric stuff like replacing light bulbs, fixing switches, vacuuming the carpet. Because it's this building, it's the fire hall, it's the chamber building. It would allow the other guys to focus more of their attention on the street work, and this gentleman would, or person, would focus more on the buildings and gardening and such things like that. Inside the city as a whole, there may be some changes coming where we can refocus some of these positions too. I don't want to get too far into the details on that, but this might be a first step in repositioning our staff to deal with that too. So, so that's the first big change with that line item. And then a couple years ago, we started separating expenses from our maintenance budget that should have been placed in this buildings budget so that we could keep better track of what it actually costs to maintain our buildings. And so you'll notice that 220, the repair and maintenance supplies, is way up. And what it's more of an accounting change than anything. That and the cost of materials obviously has gone crazy, but it's largely an accounting change where what we're spending on the buildings is being better tracked. And then utility services have gone up a little bit on this. I'm not exactly sure why, because in most cases our utilities were down a little bit. I would have to do some more investigating on why that is. The other item on line 400, you'll notice that we need to do a repair on the fire hall roof. And that's also in your council goals worksheet. The skylights that are in the building are leaking right now. And so this would repair that. So we're looking to do that next year. We may have to have a discussion with the fire department themselves. Sean put this, our fire chief asked us to take a look at it. Jenny has brought it to my attention that this may have to be something that is done in the fire department. So we'll talk about that further and see where that should go. But I think it would be wise to leave an amount similar to that in that budget in case we have an unexpected expense like that in a different building. Obviously, this building has a lot of issues. I know next year we're probably gonna need to restain the outside. And last time we did that, that was about a $7,000 expense. So I think that's about it for the buildings budget. I think the main point of discussion here is the person I would like to add. Are there any questions with that or any thoughts or comments?
The additional employee basically being maintenance position,
Yes.
cleaning. Oh, yeah. And it's so Public Works is responsible for like, landscaping, but does that include like watering plants and so forth?
So we've been taking care of it. I did look into having a contractor maintain the flower beds, and that was surprisingly expensive. To match what I had been doing would be about a $7,000 expense. And I don't know that it would have been any better. So that's if we just contract that portion of it. But it's what we need is bigger than that. There may be some need for additional mowing that we haven't been doing. But all my guys focused, they run out of the maintenance shop down there. I would see this position as operating more from up here and then going down there when he needs a tool or something. So that would be a little different. But with all the development that's been happening, the hour or two that I've been able to steal away to weed and tend to those things, I can't do anymore.
This may not be a question here, but I would just like to know the differentiation between what Public Works is responsible for mowing, watering, gardening, and what Parks and Recs is. That's where I'd like to know.
I could probably address that. So what my department takes care of is City Hall. We take care of the landscaping at the Pickle, the building in the Pickle, the Chamber of Commerce building, all of the maintenance buildings, and the sewer buildings. The Parks Department takes care of the Pocket Park, Nisswa Lake Park, the skating rink, the hockey rink, the community center. We also, the Public Works also maintains the grounds around the fire hall. We do a lot of the maintenance on the fire hall, light bulb changes, that kind of thing. Cleaning the bathrooms, we do that.
Terry mows the ball field, right?
Terry takes care of the ball field, so that's underneath the parks.
The only reason why I'm asking that is because with the upcoming Gull Lake Trail and Camp Lincoln Road projects, is there some way to work together with those two departments to figure out how that can all be taken care of? Working together to get it all done.
We're, Amber and I, the Parks Director, have been discussing ways to combine some of those positions as personnel change. And this position would be the first step in doing that. That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Will this person need a vehicle?
Well, that's sure. Obviously, they're gonna have to make trips to and from the hardware store for whatever. I think we would at least at first try to operate with the vehicles we have But yeah, they ultimately, depending on how this position is used, we might need another vehicle, yeah.
Okay, and from the wages, salaries and all these and paid insurance, Medicare and all these other things, it looks like it's around $75,000 for this person.
So what I did is I took the wage of our current lowest man on the maintenance staff, and I just matched that.
Mhm.
I do want to get somebody who's able to work independently, can figure things out, and comes with some skills. We weren't looking at this as an entry level position or anything like that. So,
And you mentioned this person could do plowing and other things as well,
likely they would operate as a backup,
backup for that. I noticed that.
but they might take care of sidewalks and stuff in and around.
Okay,
during the day.
I noticed that also there was like $31,000 overtime done in last year. Would that help to take away that overtime?
I'm hoping so. Overtime is it fluctuates largely with us. I always budget 10%.
Mhm.
And we don't usually spend all of that. But I can never predict what the winters are gonna look like exactly. And so I'd rather be a little long on the amount of overtime we have available than a little short. But yes, the idea is that we have better coverage, so that the guys aren't coming in and getting paid overtime for things that could be more scheduled and planned.
Okay,
Next.
Honestly, I think that's
That's it.
what I have.
thank you.
Remaining budget will be the sewer, which we're dealing with in September or October.
Oh, I think that's October. I mean, we'll start internally before that, but I think, perfect segue, if I could, back to my memo. So I proposed a workshop on August 31st to basically, the idea would be to take all of these new items and summarize them for you to give you a way to then start the discussion about how to prioritize. And we would have that discussion. And then in September, if needed, that would be just dependent on how the council feels about the information at that point. If you wanted to have one more final looking document before the preliminary levy, we could schedule that. We can obviously just play that by ear at this point. That's up to you. I'm just looking for some general feedback on what you think would make the most sense. I'm guessing you'd like some kind of summary of all these new items to discuss and work through.
I would.
Okay.
I definitely would.
Okay, yeah, Maggie and I can definitely put that together following next week's meeting. And then does the 31st work for everyone, or do you need to check still your schedules and just want to follow up with me?
Yeah, it's good you had work for me.
Okay,
31st is Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah,
Yeah, that works.
okay. Wonderful. I hope this was helpful, good starting point.
It was.
And
like it.
great, no, and
Mhm.
I think the departments did a great job kicking things off, and it was, I think it was very helpful, so.
So do you want council members, if we have, as we have questions or comments or thoughts or whatever, how do you want us to shoot them to you?
Please, and I may just directly defer you right to the department head. It just depends on what the question is, but if I think that it might be something the entire council would be interested in, I want to make sure to document. And so that I just know generally what you're thinking about, but I may very well just say that's a really specific question for Tom, just go talk to him type of thing, but yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll have packets out at the end of the week for next week's workshop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that all? We motion to adjourn?
I motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Okay.